I get what you mean. Like for me, I would really, really want to travel, just to be able to interact outside with, a different culture or something like that. Yeah.
Indeed.
But thank you so much for, taking the time out to talk to me today. It's kind of
Yeah,
like, a chill off for me after work to be able to, just to talk to people as well. Yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah.
get it. I get it. Yeah, and
Yeah.
actually, for you, I think we can
Mm.
call it. Let's say, I don't know, cultural withdrawal or something, global withdrawal or something,
Um, Well, I
travel
guess it's
syndrome.
much more of like because Singapore is such a small place, right? So I guess a lot of Singaporeans these days, especially that borders are closed and the city is so small you can't travel much anyway, right? And
Yeah.
I've been in China before that. So interestingly, because China had a very worst case of pandemic at the very, very start, but they managed to kind of get that in place. So I think by the mid of last year they were able to do domestic traveling, and I
Yeah.
guess I got very, very envious.
By last year around June or July, I can't remember. They are
Mm.
already Vietnam already opened up their door. Like they have a Greenland access immediately. My investor actually
Yeah.
went there. She actually did one of her video calls there.
I
So
see.
yeah, she doesn't even wear a mask or anything.
Yeah. So I guess I'm just like a bit envious of them. I'm like, oh, maybe I wish I could, go back there again, just just to visit. But yeah, but maybe
Actually, they take care of the quarantine really swiftly. I think around 3 or 4
yeah.
months. They already handle everything in check
Yes,
and
yes,
everything.
yes. No, I think
So
yeah.
it's really embarrassing. The country which has the highest population in the world can take care of the pandemic in such a short time. Whereas for us, we can't just make people stay in. No, everybody have their own opinion. Yay. So in the end, it doesn't really help.
No, I guess it has to, do with like government policies and all that. So I think it really differs from country to country. But
Yeah, it does.
yeah, I guess we can just make do with what we have at the moment. But
Well, it's
I
not that we can
guess
do. We have to make do.
yeah, exactly. But I guess, maybe you could kind of start by introducing yourself as well. So we met on LinkedIn,
Sure.
and it was just really interesting because I've been keeping tabs on what you have been doing, and I thought it was
Oh,
really
thank you.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I always tell people my name is Calvin and I am a
Mhm.
human Lego. The
Oh.
reason, yeah, it's either that or I say I am the second son of Singapore, whichever one which I think works for the situation. So yeah, why a human Lego is
Mhm.
because uh, I am an Indonesian Chinese,
Mhm.
but I have the fortune of living in Singapore. I have the fortune of regarding the Lion City, your own home country,
Mhm.
as a home for me for over 10 years. I went through the big three that every Singaporean man went through. I went through PSLE, I went
Mhm.
through O levels, and I went through national service. So, yes,
Oh.
I'm a really a true blue Singaporean, even though the only difference is I just don't have the IC.
Right.
Well, I'm supposed to. I will get back to that in another time. But
Mm.
so in 2019,
Mm.
late 2018 at that time, I was feeling really burnt out. I was exhausted, and well, we humans always want to be accomplish better things, right? We want to strive to accomplish better. We want to succeed. But at that time, I just don't feel that what I'm doing is going to get me to end somewhere that is progressive enough.
Mhm.
And at that time, sadly, my startup failed. So I don't really know what am I supposed to do at that time. So
Mhm.
my parents are aging, and I want to be able to be there for them. And also because I don't feel any kind of progression, I feel really burned out.
Mhm.
And at that time, my father actually had a project,
Mm.
and it's actually still undergoing. But the thing is because our investor is from China, which is
Mm.
the first country that whereby the pandemic started. So
Yes.
at that time before the pandemic, we actually were settling in a lot of stuff. We were about to do some work,
Mm-hmm.
So my plan was okay. In 2019, I took a gap year. In 2020, at that time, because as I mentioned, at that time we were actually supposed to close a deal, but if the original plan had worked out, of course I will be shadowing my father around for a year
Mm.
to see how the project started, how it will commence, at least be on their side. And in
Mm.
2021, I would have come back home to Singapore. Oh well, all of it actually. Well, the first part succeeded to a certain extent.
Mm.
2020 did not work out as I wanted, and here I am in 2021. So hooray!
I see. I guess like maybe let's go back to the very, very beginning, right? When
Right.
you mentioned that you came to Singapore at a very young age.
Yes.
So was that a choice that was made by your parents, or how did you feel having to move from Indonesia to Singapore?
Good question. Yeah, I can't remember the exact details actually,
Mm-hmm.
but as the way my parents would have told me is that it's you who actually make the decision. You told us when I actually was, yeah, it was around 2004 if I'm not if I recall
Mm-hmm.
correctly. I actually was on holiday with my
Mm.
because I have a cousin and my aunt was living there. My cousin's mom, sorry,
Yep.
my paternal aunt. So at that time was my first experience in
Mm-hmm.
Singapore. I mean, that was my I mean, being in Singapore alone. I've actually been to Singapore once when I was a lot younger. I went there quite often. Then after
Mm.
that, that's the first time my parents actually allowed me to go like an exchange student abroad.
Mm.
And the experience was something that really captivated me. I fell in love with the country, and okay, maybe I can do this. Maybe there is something for me in Singapore. So at that time, okay, I think according to my parents, I told them I want to study here. And at that time, also there was a certain trend in Indonesia whereby the parents are sending their kids over for a few years overseas. Maybe
Mm.
they thought, oh, okay, this is just going to help him to improve his English. Then eventually he'll come back. But I was there for 10 plus years. I went there
Oh,
for
yeah.
nearly 20 years already. So to the point that, yeah, I'm Singapore is just as much as a home to me as Indonesia is. And
Mm.
respectfully, I mean, I love both countries, but I think I have a closer bond to Singapore. So
Mm.
that's how it was back then.
No, I think it's always like very difficult for my friend as well. You know, she moved from China to Singapore at a very young age as well. So
Mm.
you know, at first glance or when you speak to her, you'll never find that she's from another country because the accent is so similar and she has already picked up, you know, some of the cultural nuances, right? So
Yep,
I guess it can't be helped, but the fact is that, you know, when you come from both countries, it's always there's this part where you identify with both sides as well, right? You kind of
absolutely.
like pick up cultural nuances on both sides. But for you at the time as a student, how often did you go back to Indonesia?
Okay. So last time, I think for the first 2 years,
Mm.
every Sunday I always call my parents, and I every single school holiday at that time it will be like around maybe in November, December or something during the
Mm.
term break or something. I
Mm.
always come back for over a month or so. To the
Ah.
point that, however, when I reached my teenage years at that time, I think I just got so numb to it. I just got used to it. So
Mm.
it became irregular because of course there's different circumstances at that time. But
Mm.
yeah, I went back if need be, and during like important occasions like holidays, Chinese
Mhm.
New Year, yeah, then I will head back home. So
Mm.
it. I mean, the thing is that as we grow up, I guess the thing that I would actually recommend if anyone who actually did or will be
Mm.
undergoing this life is actually maintain that close ties with your parents, or even if you have to for the parents,
Mm.
drag the young lady or the boy to come home, or at
Mm.
least find a way to make sure that you are on regular contacts
Mm.
because I actually went back as an adult. It was 3 years back. So I was 25, 26. People now can guess my age. So yeah, because by the time I returned, I already have my own perspective. I already
Mm,
have my own mindset. I already know who I am. And then
mm,
suddenly I have to come back to a country that is supposed to be my home,
mm,
but they don't want to accept me the way I am.
mm,
And I will tell one story I always tell whenever people ask what is the biggest cultural experience for
mm,
you. My first ever hired car ride, the go car service here in Indonesia.
mm-hmm.
The, oh, I think they also have it in Singapore now, right? Gojek.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay,
Gojek, yes.
fantastic. Okay, so my first ever car ride. Okay, the driver asked me within first 5 minutes, "Hi, how are you? Where are you from? Are you married? Have you eaten?" I'm like, huh? Okay, let me repeat. Hi, how
Mm-hmm.
are you? Where are you from? Are you married? Have you
Yeah.
eaten? I'm like, excuse me? Who are you to ask me all of this?
But
My mom doesn't even.
you
Yeah,
don't get
sorry.
asked sorry, you don't get asked if you were married in Singapore.
No, well, I do get asked that.
Yeah.
However, not by some stranger that I just met
I
on
see.
a vehicle that I just want to. I mean, it's quite common for us to in Singapore where we just take a cab. It's just okay. The
Quiet,
uncle don't want to
silence.
talk. Let's just don't talk.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm here. You're there. Okay, I pay you. You get me to where
Mm,
I want to be. Simple.
I
But
see.
here's the thing: in Indonesia, the boundaries between something that people want to consider intimacy and between somebody and professionalism is like really minimal to non-existent. So
Mm-hmm.
this man, I mean, I have nothing personal against him, but I don't want to talk to him. I don't care about him. I'm sorry. I just want to get in the car. I already paid you. I just want
Mm,
you to bring me to my location that I asked. That's it. But you just got to ask me all these kinds of things that
mm,
seems too
mm,
personal. And I was like, okay. And at that time, I
mm,
didn't respond to it correctly. So uh, only later on that I found out about why is it this way through my own
mm,
cousin who actually spent his teenage years in Malaysia.
mm-hmm.
So at least he already has a certain grasp of the Indonesian cultural context. That
Mm,
is actually one of the inspiration that made the creation of my live stream podcast.
I see. And so you would say that it was after spending so much time in Singapore and after having returned back to Indonesia that the part on global citizens really came to your mind.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of stories to it. So
Mm,
when I came back, as I said earlier, like
mm-hmm,
my plan was 2019, come back, 2020, help dad's
mm,
business, 2021, return home to Singapore.
yes.
But when I return home, my father immediately is like, "Oh my God, the prodigal son has returned." That's what he told my father. It's like, "Oh, he's back! Yeah, come, son.
Yeah.
I will make sure you become a carbon copy of me. I will pour everything into you. You are gonna be an entrepreneur. You're gonna take over my business. Yeah."
Mm-hmm,
Then that that became a gigantic headache. And
mm-hmm,
there's a certain custom in Indonesia, like if you set
mm.
up a business, you need to have somebody who is there acting as the person in charge. And
Ah,
usually, the one that is sent there is, well, the son. The
mm.
older, the well, I'm the only son, so there's no backup for me. That's
Mm,
one. And my dad at that time already had an idea because our main business is actually in Bali. Uh,
mm,
but at that time, he actually had an idea to purchase a property in a developing area,
mm,
uh, which is around 2 hours drive from my house there. And when we return back in the
mm,
evening, it will be 3 hours. So in total, it's a 5 hours back and forth to that rural area.
mm-hmm,
Then I was put there. So I was stuck there. I mean, okay, I don't want to sound like very ungrateful, but
Mm-hmm.
for somebody who grew up in a big city and in
Mm.
Singapore, metropolitan city, and then
Yep.
suddenly you put me in a rural area whereby the citizens, sorry, yeah, the people who live there, their main
Mm.
source of income is hard labor. So
Mm.
they're lovely people. They're very kind. But the thing is that you can never find things that are in common with them. That's one.
Mm.
Two, nobody speaks English. There's nobody who speaks English, and that is the main tongue that I'm so used to speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Unless, well, I can speak to some cows and chickens how to speak English, but
Okay.
no, there's no such thing. So
Mm.
the last one is that areas that's a little bit more developed, something like a
Mm-hmm.
mall, is like around 45 minutes to an hour away
Mm.
from that place. So I really am out of my comfort zone. I really am out of my element. So
Mm.
we actually had a lot of arguments with, well, primarily my dad. My mom is a lot more accepting of it because she understood.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is that I mean, my dad and I have a loving relationship, but though that several few months whereby we have a certain contention on where I was
Mm.
staying became in a sense like an invisible a barrier of sort that makes it really difficult to talk to him. Like you need to be a lot more cautious when you talk to him because
Mm.
at the end of the day, to me, he's still my father. I still love my
Mm.
father, but the thing is that I don't. There's not everything that he asked me is not 100% for me.
Mm.
So at that time, the only kind of safe haven in a sense that I have is a laptop and a Wi-Fi access. At least I still have technology. So at that time, uh, what I had in mind was actually to create a book. I want to write how to manage the difference between living in Singapore and in Indonesia.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the thing is that I've always been fond of writing. But the thing is that I don't like to do a stereotypical approach whereby I just write word by word and then something topic related to it. I wanted a different way. So what I did was I write down all the issues that I had. Then I
Mm.
put pop cultural references in order to make the easiest comparison. But when it reached down to like around 12 chapters or something, I actually showed it to a friend of mine who is a serial expat. He's actually in Qatar at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And he told me, your experience does not encompass the entire global citizen's life. I mean, yeah,
Mm.
it is your own experience because you moved from a developed city to a developing country. So
Mm.
now you are just presenting one part of it. And when he told me about it, I kind of reflect, oh yeah, it really is not as incomprehensive as I wanted to be.
Mm.
And actually, yeah, I hope my parents are not wrong. But yeah, the thing is that in a sense, I kind of lied to them. Like every 3 months, I have to come back to Singapore. It's actually not any kind of requirement or anything.
Mm.
I actually, in a sense, it is because being an NS man, I have an exit permit that I put for 3 months. So every 3 months I come back home, and in a sense, it's also something for me to feel comfort because it's my safe haven. It's where I grow up most of my life. It's a place
Yeah.
that I call home. So yeah,
Yeah.
I have. So at that time, I actually attended a networking event. The
Mm.
person who was the keynote speaker actually ended up on my show. She
Huh.
was she was one of my earliest guests. But at that time, of course, the show has not been created yet. I was just
Mm.
attending a networking event because I was waiting for a friend before he finished work.
Mm.
So at that time, there's actually two people who actually live the same life as me. Uh, they grow up outside Singapore, and one of them is actually grew up in Singapore. She's from Sweden,
Mm.
and she has grown up in other countries. So we all are third culture kids. Now, one of them actually apparently had the same idea as me. He wanted
Mm.
to compile his experience going up abroad and then make it into a book. But okay, I don't have a negative impression. I don't want to say anything bad about the person,
Mm.
but he actually told the keynote speaker,
Mm.
at that time my future guest, is this. You know, you are a two-time Amazon best-selling author.
Mm.
You only did 2 books and you are on stage. I've done 8 books and here I am still standing here, still sitting here, just attending. So I
Mm.
mean, it's not even a straightforward. It's just rude. So that experience actually kind of turned on a little light bulb in me, because
Mhm.
if I had done it the same way as he has done it, I'm not gonna get anything. I'm not gonna have any kind of progress.
Mm.
I can tell people I wrote a book, but that's it. People are not gonna know me.
Mm.
And I mean, you would have done something, you would have expected something, right? But
Mhm.
the thing is that at that time when I see this man, is that he's not has no progression in life. So
Mm.
and when I returned back home at that time, I reflected, because before I actually returned home to Indonesia
Mhm.
in around late 2018, I've managed to save up quite some money. So for like around 2 to 3 months, I
Mm.
attended over 100 networking events. Yeah. So
Wow, that's a lot.
yeah, I
How
attended
do you keep up
two.
with it?
I don't know. I really have no idea. I really have no idea. I attended like over 100 networking events.
Mm.
So at that time, I actually managed to meet a lot of notable influencers and
Mm.
experts in Singapore. One of whom is, for example, Mr. Rayson Chu, Eric Fong,
Mm.
Vivek Iani, who actually kindly called me on my birthday at that time. So
Oh,
he actually
that's
was on
sweet.
my show. All three of them has been on my show actually. So I actually pick up pieces of the advices that they have ever told me,
Mhm.
and then I actually primarily I emulated recent two style, whereby he actually have a sit down one-on-one conversation with notable figures like Gary Vaynerchuk, Grant Cardone.
Mm.
So, but the thing is that, well, I can't invite these names, and at the same time, it was not something that I wanted. So Eric Fong actually told me that at that
Mm.
time, when he first started doing it, he used Facebook Live.
Mm.
And when he come up with a topic on what to say is, don't look at the number of viewers. Don't think about the money that you're going to make.
Mm.
Think of that primary reason, that primary cause of difficulty that you have, and then you make it into a topic. If one person can actually listen and then say thank you to you and understand what you are trying to do, you've done
Mm.
your job. So at that time, the main issue that I had, of course, was because I was dealing with cultural differences.
Mm.
And that's how I actually make it into a topic. And because a friend of mine said that you don't encompass the entire experience, why don't I do it this way? I invite them,
Mhm.
do like what we are doing at this very moment. We
Mhm.
have a camera that can be done by any kind of technology. Side by side, we can just stop, and there we go. I don't need any kind of certification. I don't need any kind of licenses.
Mm.
All I have to do is it's like the equivalent of asking you, "Hi, where did you grow up? How is your experience in that particular country?"
Mm.
That
Mm.
doesn't need any kind of licenses or anything, right? It just need a
Yes.
camera and a microphone. And
Yes.
that has been the style that I have been using since.
Mhm.
I have completed 92 episodes so far. The 93rd
Mm.
is coming this Saturday.
Mm. Well, I guess like, when it comes to personal experience, you have mentioned so many things, right? That your experience cannot cover everybody's experience, right? Because I think there's
Okay.
always going to be some common similarities that bond people together. But the fact is that someone has also told me that everybody's experience is unique, and the feeling in itself is also unique. And I want to touch a bit more on your platform and all, but I just want to go backtrack a bit on when you were talking about your relationship with your father, and
Yeah.
how you had some disagreements, but in all it's still pretty a loving relationship, right? I
Right.
was just curious because you mentioned that you did NS, like national service. So was it something that they knew of, and was it something that you decided for yourself? So I'm kind of curious about that because I'm pretty
Oh,
sure
he
if
love it.
yeah
He loves it. My father,
really
throughout his entire career,
mm-hmm.
my father actually are acquainted with several military individuals
Mm,
and those in the police. So they are people that he really trusted. So
mm.
when he heard, wow, my son is going to go to the army, yeah, go for it. And here's the thing, it's not my decision to do it. I'm a Singapore permanent resident, by the way, so
Yeah,
I have to enlist. So,
yeah.
and actually, I have no rejection about it. I have no, if I ever had any regret in my service time in service, is
Mm-hmm.
because I did not bond enough with my campmates at that time.
Mm, mm,
Because
mm, mm,
yeah, we all were going through our own personal journeys at that time.
mm,
If I ever had any regret, is that
mm,
during my service time. But
mm.
because I am somebody who is actually quite an introverted person,
Yep.
uh, but the thing, and yeah, only if I have a mic and a camera, then I'm very different. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
actually somebody who is much more of a loner. And
Mm,
the close group of friends, the best group of friends, the closest group of people that I
mm-hmm.
can call brothers, even though they are not blood related to me, are
Mm-hmm.
from my time in the military. And had I actually am able to spend a lot more time with them at that time, I would have actually made a lot more friends that
Mm, mm,
I know is a lifelong companion to me in a sense. Because
mm,
yeah, this several group of friends that I can put in my fingertips. They all are some of the closest people in my life. I chat with them
mm,
regularly, and even when I was in Singapore, and even now I'm not in Singapore, they are some
mm,
of the closest groups that I have. But I keep on thinking that if at that time I actually try to bond a little bit more with everybody
mm,
that I know within my social circle,
mm,
within the good phase of my life, I can actually
mm,
make a closer bond and relationship. But
mm,
yeah, I mean, it's already past. I have no regrets. But yeah, in a sense, it is a regret
mm.
because
No,
at that time I didn't know any better.
no, I completely understand what you mean, right? Especially when during the time when I was studying in China, there was always times where I wish I had more time to spend with my local classmates. But I guess when you're in a foreign country, you're always trying to find a sense of belonging or home. So it's very normal when you go to a foreign country where you see people of the same country, they tend to stick together and they form their
Yes,
own groups, and it's harder to kind of like break out and meet new people in that sort of way. But
exactly.
I think your experience is really very interesting in a way that, you said you were an introvert, but you ended up, doing YouTube episodes which were probably motivated by your friends and your experience, right? So how did the first episode go? Do you remember? Or like what did you talk about? Yeah.
Oh, it was horrible.
Yeah.
It was horrible. The first episode, what actually at that time I didn't do the live stream style yet. I was
Mm,
doing it because at that time the person just happened to be with me at that time.
mm,
He lived nearby my place.
I
He's
see.
an expatriate from he is an expatriate from Turkey. He
Mm,
is in Indonesia actually.
mm,
He works as an engineer. He happens to stay like around 20-30 minutes away from my house.
I
So at that
see.
time I just asked him, and the only thing I have to do was buy him coffee. That's it.
Yeah.
And the first episode was done terribly.
Mhm.
My only resources at that time, okay, is a $500 laptop that I
Mm.
took from my employer because he did not give me my last pay. Yeah, and he didn't pay my CPF,
Okay.
so it's equal.
You
You
took
didn't
his
give me my
laptop.
pay, I took your laptop. So that's it. That's the only resources I have at that time. And
Yeah.
as I mentioned, I used to live in a really rural place. So to do that episode, I actually have to travel back to Jakarta. Uh, at that time,
Oh, wow.
my parents were not at home at that time.
Mm.
They were on a holiday. So okay, mom and dad is not at home, so I can just sleep. I can just sleep at home. Then the next day, I can come back to.
Mm.
my house outside the city, which is
Yeah.
fine. So it was done terribly because at that time my video quality was really really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, because the two of us have a really tan skin,
Mm.
so it was blur. It's a like a brownish blur,
I
and
see.
but the audio is salvageable, but
Mm.
it was done terribly. And at that time, because I'm not used yet to what the topics that I want to ask, nowadays
Mm.
I'm a lot more familiar.
Mm.
The situation was a lot more manageable, but I was really, really
At a
unsure
loss.
of what I asked. So, nah, it was not done well, but it's a learning experience, right?
Yeah, I get what you mean, especially like, for me, I've done my podcast. Initially the first one, which was in Chinese, and the first thing was that, when you do your first episode and you are like wondering, oh, if it's up to standard. And one of my friends told me this, like, if it doesn't work out and it fails, you can just buy the interviewee food and say sorry, it didn't work out, but they're still your friends. So I guess like that mindset kind of like brought me along, but I'm still so far away from 92 episodes. Like, how do you keep it up, um like finding sources, having this momentum of pushing it out every week, because it probably takes time, and it's out of your job as well.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in terms of job, I'm lucky enough.
Mm,
I'm assisting my dad. He's a
mm,
solopreneur, so at least if only when at that time that when he needs to be at a certain kind of event that require me
mm,
or that requires my skill, which is a lot more on translation or
mm,
any digital related area, I'm pretty
mm,
much I'm able to handle it on my own. But
mm,
yeah, as you mentioned, it's not easy sourcing the people. For one thing is that for one thing is that people when you ask somebody randomly is that hi, do you want to come to my show? Is and at the very first round, it's not easy. It's because well, why would anybody want to do that? I mean, you're just a regular stranger. It's
mm,
something that's really it's something that they can be a little bit wary of.
mhm,
But what motivated me was actually, as I mentioned, is that as long as there's one person who just tune in and say, I get what you're trying to do, and
mm,
or better is they say thank you. That's the thing. I've said it 100 times before. I don't care about money. I don't
mm.
care about fame. I mean, if you want to give me money or you want to make me famous, I don't mind. I mean, I won't mind. But at the time, like when I was keep doing it, is that
Mhm,
it's because to me, I have a group, I have a community of third culture kids,
mm,
people who grow up outside of our own passport country or outside
mm,
of our own parents' culture, who never had a sense of belonging, who could
mhm,
never know where they belong, and even if they are at a new place, they are considered outsiders. They need to
mhm,
learn every single time to bond with the locals just to feel accepted. I have this group that I want to be able to represent.
mm,
Or I recently received a little bit of a mixed reaction. I recently posted a photo on Instagram of the
mhm,
SAR 21, Singapore Armed Forces Rival 21,
mhm.
and I told them my experience because at that time it was during the recent attack on the Asian community in the United
Yes.
States. It was something that was really, really personal to me. It's because
Mm,
I've never lived in the United States before. But growing up in Singapore, one of the things that I really hated when people ask me is this: why do you slang? It's not that
mm,
I'm trying to sound pompous or pretentious or trying to sound more British or American.
mhm,
I grew up knowing this as the only source of English that I had at that time.
mm,
It's like
mm,
as if I'm trying to tell Singaporean, hey, you cannot speak English anymore. Don't talk
mm.
English. They will get confused, right? That's the same way.
Yes.
That's how I felt at that time. And then I realized that when I was young, I mean, when I was younger, it's fine. But as you get
Mm,
older, you realize nobody looks like me in the
mm,
media that became a safe haven to me. Nobody looks like me. And even if they do, they look embarrassing. they feel degraded, that make you realize, is this how the world see an Asian man? Is this how the world see how pathetic I am? Even though it's not true. I mean, people can say, oh, there is a certain representation of Asian. Look at Jackie Chan. Yeah, but we all don't jump out of a helicopter. We are not going to risk our life every single time just to entertain you. That's not something that we do. And not all of us knows kung fu, by the way. That's the thing. So at that time, the topic became really personal to me, and when I posted, in a sense, it represents a lot of. It became more than just a representation for third culture kids. It became a certain kind of maybe it is something that's too ideal, too much of an idealist, or maybe something that people say is too imaginative. But the thing is that it represents and facilitates a concept that breaks the mold, that breaks the stereotype image that the world has already established, and what people has been trying to fight on, despite times being changing due to progressing, maybe due to technology or maybe kind of social stigma. But times are changing, and that became what Global Citizens is. It's a platform to facilitate changes, and done through illustrating people's stories, through presenting them in an environment that is comfortable for them to share who they are. Earlier, you mentioned some stuff bonds us. There are three things that I always mention whenever what bonds people. Firstly is food, stories, and tragedy. All these three are the ultimate bond, because in terms of adversity, you get to know who are the people that is closest to you and those who love you and appreciate you for who you are. Whereas the other two are things that you never realize, that even though how different we are, we actually can always find a common ground. It's because when you hear a side of a story, then you hear how similar you are. You kind of realize that. Like, for example, in Africa, there's a celebration whereby they say death is not something to be sad about. It's the celebration of your life. It's the celebration of what you have accomplished in life. I mean, that's a way for you to reflect in that, oh, wow, this is something that is encouraging. This is positive, even though in other cultures, that could have been seen as something that is very negative. But yeah, in a sense, this is something that we can always learn from different kinds of aspects and stories that we can incorporate into who we are.
Yeah. No, I guess, like, you have mentioned so much and it gave me so much to think about in a way. Because I think firstly, right, when it comes to the definition of global citizens, I think this is still a relatively new idea or concept that, if it were my parents' generation, they would not have come across this. Yeah, and I guess in the past, when we used to travel, and the first thing people ask is where you're from, right? And you have seen, we have all seen stories in America where they ask you where you are really from, not like where you're born in, which was probably for some people they are born in America, right? So
Yep.
I guess, like, people always want to find a way to, how I say this. Sometimes I feel like the society is pretty much getting much more divided than it usually was, and it's always like, even in Singapore now, it's increasingly becoming us and them
Yep.
situation, which I think essentially that's when the group of global citizens, right, who are born out of all these things, because they have experienced so much in different countries that it's to me it's kind of like a new community that is born out of it. And
Yep.
I would hope, or I wish that this community is kind of like getting larger. Yeah. So I guess probably in on your platform as well, especially for global citizens, was there a particularly one episode or one person that was really memorable, or you connected really deeply with, or maybe a new perspective? Yeah.
Yes, actually, it's episode 44.
Oh, how you
Her
remember
name,
the number?
I can
Wow.
remember quite a handful of episodes. I made
Wow.
them.
Yes, of
I
course.
made them. I remember them.
Yeah.
It's episode 44. Her name is Donnie Aldin. So
Mhm.
Donnie is the editor in chief of Cultures magazine, which I
Mm.
think that time it has 1.5 million subscribers and it's
Mm.
available in 500 stores worldwide. So it's
Mm.
a magazine that celebrates diversity and cultural experiences.
Mm.
This one comes really, really close to my heart. The reason
Mm.
being is that because it was actually the circumstances of how I met her, actually. I
Mhm.
hope I remember correctly. If not, it's going to be very embarrassing for me. I think it's 44. I think it's 44. But in
It's okay,
case
I
you
can
I
edit it
got it
away.
wrong, at least I got the right person. In case I got
Yeah.
it wrong, I got the right person. But yeah,
Mhm.
anyway, why that one come really, really close to my heart is because like this. At that time, I actually created an anti-racism article. And
Mm.
the main inspiration for it was actually the earliest case of attack on xenophobia on
Mm.
Asians at that time when the COVID-19 pandemic was just the outbreak was just started. At
Mm.
that time, there was a reported case of a Singaporean who was attacked in the United Kingdom, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So I mean that was something that was really personal to me since
Mhm.
Singaporeans are people that, in a sense, are my people too. It's because
Mhm.
I have ingrained myself into Singapore so deeply that it's something
Mhm.
that's personal. It's something that's painful to me.
Mhm.
Uh, there was one person who, from what I know, she's actually a cultural content creator too, but
Mhm.
she's a racist. She's a
Oh.
racist. Yes, she has certain issues with those of African American descent. The
Mhm.
reason being was that apparently when she at that time her house was robbed by by a black man, and she was and at that time, because at that time when my article was done, I already have my proofreader done checking it and everything,
Mhm.
and because one of the area I already put is already on systemic racism, I dedicated that certain segment to George Floyd, who
Mm.
passed away during the Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah.
So, okay, I already done it anyway. So, and the only thing I have to do is just add as a tribute to George Floyd because I
Mhm.
really do want it to be something that's special. And well, the areas that I already mentioned also already heavily mentioned on certain case of racism of the African American community in the
Mhm.
United States. So I don't see a reason why I cannot add that man's name as a sign of respect, and I did not publicize it anyway.
Mhm.
It's something that people will discover when they read it, and I don't tell people, oh, this is as a tribute to Black Lives Matter or any of that. In a sense, because as I said, the inspiration was actually the attack on the Asian community of whom I
Mhm.
belong to. That that person, well, who I said it was very, very insulting to my article is because she doesn't like it because that's personal to her. Donnie actually at that time defended me is because to her the article was done respectfully. It's done
Mm.
fairly. Every single form of racism was represented there. The stereotype on the Latino community, Asians, and
Mm.
African Americans. It was done perfectly. It was done perfectly according to her.
Mhm.
It was done fair. There was no certain biasness towards a certain colors or anything.
Mm.
But that person did not read it. But it's just that she wants to incite trouble is because she thought, oh, you are trying to publicize it to capitalize Black Lives Matter. So
Mm.
Donnie actually defended me for it, and I actually asked her, "Hey, are you okay?" Then I actually got to know about who she is. Then I was like, "Wow, wow, that's very impressive of what you do. Would you like to come to my show?" And tada, and there we go. That
Well, I
happened.
guess sometimes like things really do happen when it's really up to opportunities, right? So I guess that's how I met you. It was through an opportunity as well, and I really feel so grateful for it. I guess because that most of the time when we have like the time where I spend in China and then coming back to Singapore feeling that it feels a bit different but you don't know where, and after that I got to know of this community where, oh, actually, like, so many people out there are feeling the same way. So I think it's kind of like admirable that you have been doing this for 1 year plus. So
This is going to be, as a cultural content creator, this is
mm,
going to be my third year.
for your third
Oh,
year.
just to add a rectification, that episode is actually 59. Sorry. 44 was
Okay.
my highest view episode. That's why I always remember it wrongly. Sorry
I
about that.
see, I see.
But
No, no,
yeah,
that's fine.
59, 59.
Mhm.
44 was my
Okay.
highest viewed episode. That's why I got very confused. It's going to be my third year
Mhm,
in creating intercultural content.
mhm.
Uh,
So I guess, like, I see that your belief in it, and um your belief in it, and how you are going to continue advocating for this as well, right? So I guess, having done so many episodes, and over the past 3 years, I'm pretty sure that you have received many advices, or many
yep,
advice, with regards to
yep,
global citizenship, and like reverse cultural shock. So
yep.
what is one great piece of advice that you can share?
How much time do we have?
Uh, yeah, sure. No, you can continue. Yeah.
Yeah, there's many advices I've ever
Mm-hmm.
received. One of which is you need to improve your video quality, which I get it, okay, but there's a
Mm-hmm.
reason why I maintain this format. Even
Mm.
though I already said money and fame is not my main intention when I started it.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to give me, I'm happy with it. But the
Mm.
reason why I maintain this style is because I don't talk about always happy things. I'm not
Mm.
Ellen DeGeneres. I'm not gonna sing and I'm not gonna dance. I don't
Mm.
have a high energy. I don't have any kind of created drama in order to incite people to
Mm.
actually watch it. I
Mm.
talk about people's life, some of which may not always be the bright sunshine rainbows. That's why
Mm.
I retain a certain format that may not seem to always be pleasant to everybody, but
Mm.
this is the format that I believe is because I don't talk about things that people regard as happiness all the time.
Mm.
I talk about actual person's story, which is
Mm.
not always 100% beautiful. So that's the reality. And in a sense, that kind of becomes an advice to who you are is that firstly, in a sense, it also became a working mindset that I have in presenting myself to the world.
Mm.
Is that there's a people like to say be yourself. I agree with that, but I have to add on something to that.
Mm.
Discover yourself, then be yourself. What I
Mm.
mean by that is that learn you always have to keep on moving in this world. But the thing is, the world doesn't have a stop pause button until recently, maybe during COVID. But when you keep on moving, you have to always take the time to reflect on a certain experience on
Mm.
yourself. Then maybe it can be cultural differences with somebody of other nationality or other
Mm.
ethnicity, or it can be somebody who could look like you, but there was
Mm.
a misunderstanding. Learn from it. Then you understand a little bit more. You reflect on it. Oh, that this is how I am. I don't have to settle down for. I don't always have to give excuses. I don't have
Mm.
to just settle down just because I like it, because it's just comfortable for me this way. If
Mm.
this is something that is for the best for me, then I have to strive for it.
Mm.
That is, in a sense, some one of the life lessons, I guess, that I took from it. Discover yourself. Then, when you are actually more familiar with who you are, because you have a lot more experience from it, then that is the who you can present to the world, because that
Mm.
is who you are at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, I really like that, especially when yeah, I'm pretty sure people have mentioned about the video, but
Yeah.
I think one thing that you have showed today is that it's the authenticity
Yes, exactly.
authenticity. Yeah, authentic,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yep.
authenticity of the people that you are speaking to, and the stories that are not filtered, which I think it's very hard to come by. And I think with that aspect, right, I've heard someone told me before that when it's something that you're passionate about or something that you like, it's always that the passion comes first and then the money flows in. So these
Exactly.
days when you do content creation, there's so much talk about monetization and strategizing content. And I'm like, so with your global citizens, and with my podcast as well, I've always been trying to go with less strategizing and letting people speak their minds. So I think on that note, it's always been that what you said, that stories are the most important, and it's
Yep.
what really bonds people together. Yeah, so
Exactly.
thank you for that.
Maybe let me add something to that.
Yes, of course.
People tend to have fear of public speaking, right?
Mm,
Why? Because they are
mm,
afraid that they'll say something wrong, that they are gonna
yeah,
embarrass themselves.
yeah.
Actually, here's the thing:
Mm-hmm,
nobody cares about it. Nobody.
mm-hmm,
The fact that you are willing to already go up to a stage to
mm-hmm,
talk, okay, you have already won 50% of the battle. That's actually the reality in life. The
mm-hmm,
fact that you are willing to do it,
mm-hmm,
it's already the fact that you're already halfway there. Whether
mm-hmm,
you in the end you really completed or not, well, it's up to how capable you are. It's all up
mm-hmm,
to fate or something that it may be beyond your control. But that's the same thing with how everything is in life.
mm-hmm,
Everything can you can always learn from it. You can make a mistake, take a step back, reflect on it, then move forward again with
mm-hmm,
that renewed perspective.
mm-hmm.
That's the thing. I always tell people, I've been asked before, and this question is that how come you like public speaking so much? Because I've been in a situation whereby I only have three people in front of me, and one of them say I suck. So if you give me 1,000 people, I will be very happy because at least I don't have to know where the term "you suck" come from. And two, it's actually more encouraging because at least I know there's 1,000 people that want
Watching
to take
you.
their time to listen to me. Yes, that's the
I
thing.
get what you mean. Yeah, so I guess for me, I've always been an introvert as well, right? But it's the idea of I initially want to work in a radio industry. I wanted to be a radio broadcaster. So that was when they say that if you want to be in front of a mic all the time, then you have to learn how to speak. So I guess that's what pushed me forward. So it I guess like on you as well, I really see how passion has brought forth, this change and how much you have achieved. So
Thank you.
thank you for sharing your experience today. I really loved it so much. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Mm,
I've actually listened to your first episode. It was beautifully
mm.
done. So
Oh, thank you
keep
so
going.
much. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
just keep
hoping
going.
to just get up to 10 episodes, and probably it wouldn't be so tough after that. Yeah, because the
Yep,
last
you need to
one,
get to
yeah.
10. The 10 is the benchmark actually. If at
Right.
the 10 you can pass, you can keep going.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
So,
I'll tell you one story. In
mm.
my 10 episode, somebody say I suck. And because
Ah,
I was doing it Facebook Live, I can see the comment
oh
directly.
dear.
It's like,
Oh dear.
yeah, the comment was written. I remember it vividly. It's, this episode sucks. I was like, oh dear. Then after that, I actually know the person who said it. So I asked,
Mm-hmm.
hey, why do you say my episode sucks?
Mm,
Then the person told me, you don't, you are not, you are upset today, right? I'm like, wait, how do you know? Yeah, because I
mm,
was really having a bad day at that time.
mm.
Because I can see it in the episode. When you are not
Ah.
invested in your own episode, why would I want to be invested in it? So I was like, oh yeah, oh wow,
Oh
that's
yeah, actually that's a very, very, good advice. Yeah. I
yeah.
think
Then I was like,
yeah, so when I did my first episode as well, my friends were telling me that that was, the one of the best conditions that they have heard me in. So I guess I've always been using that energy as a benchmark as well to do it. Yeah, and also to just really be on the ground and just listen to stories. Right. After all, like for everybody, there's always a story to tell. Hmm.
Exactly. I think in
Yeah.
a sense, this also is a lesson. Life
Mm.
gives you what you put in. If,
Yeah.
like I said, if I was not happy in my own episode, then of course
Mm.
I won't have a good result. That actually, that 10 episode in a sense, because it was not easy to do all this every single time. So at that time,
Yes.
maybe I was thinking, okay, maybe after 10 I can take a break. But then
Mm.
when I actually received the that kick in the back, I was like,
Mm.
oh yeah, that is a good lesson actually for me.
Mm.
It's
Mm. Mm.
still, though it would have been more appreciated if you just send me a direct DM. Don't have to do it live. But
Yeah,
yeah,
but yeah, so I guess like, especially like me working in the media, right? Everybody is always saying how consistency is the key. So well, I guess there's so much to really learn from you and just to move forward as well. Yeah. But
yeah.
so far everything has been fine. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you.
Mm.
Yeah,
I think
I mean, you
yeah.
always can learn from everywhere. That's the
Yes, yes,
thing.
of course.